So it looks like Julian Assange got stitched up by the feds. If you can believe that. Can you believe that?
To be honest, I'm not a huge follower of Julian Assange's story, just because it started before I got interested in politics.
Well, he got stitched. Basically, my summary of it is Julian Assange did nothing wrong. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't know half of the things we knew about Hillary, for example. And he is performing a valuable service to democracy.
So he was the guy in charge of WikiLeaks who leaked a bunch of stuff about what the US was doing abroad.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots and lots of stuff, but also things that have been happening domestically in the US that have been important because of the, I guess we'll call them cabal of people surrounding Hillary Clinton and the things she was doing. But this obviously put him on the radar of everyone who wants to get these kinds of people to shut up. I mean, WikiLeaks phrase is "we open governments," and that's obviously the last thing that certain governments want. And so this is why Assange has been something of a hero of mine and various others, people like Edward Snowden, the people who actually put themselves on the line to say, hey, this is what's happening and you actually have to know this and I'm going to suffer for this. Assange is currently in Belmarsh prison in solitary, I believe. He who must not be named was near him and spoke to him occasionally.
Apparently moved to the hospital section of the prison because his mind's a bit gone at this point, which I mean it would be. Yeah,
and so I think this is really terrible. But Hugo has done an amazing write-up on how one of the key witnesses against Assange has lied, and just openly lied, and no one cares, and no one's doing anything about it. There seems to be a basic media blackout on this. So Icelandic newspaper Stundin published a report on June 26th, which summarised an interview conducted with Sigurdur Ingi Thordarson, I think it is. Key witness.
Skip over the Icelandic names.
Yeah, well, at least they're not Polish, I guess. Key witness in the indictment against Julian Assange. According to Stundin, in the interview, he had simply admitted to numerous crimes he committed in Iceland, as well as to fabricating accusations against Assange. Despite the guy's history of criminal activity, and that includes sexual abuse of minors, Assange, he is still in custody, of course. He had volunteered, Thordarson had volunteered for WikiLeaks in 2010 and 2011. During this time, he repeatedly used his position to enrich himself at the expense of the organisation and its credibility. According to Stundin, the newspaper, his activities and cooperation with a prolific hacker-turned-FBI informant resulted in a DDoS attack against Icelandic websites and government institutions in 2011, which were likely conducted by the FBI itself in an attempt to implicate Assange. In the same year, when relations soured between Thordarson and WikiLeaks due to his embezzlement of their money, he turned to the FBI to become an informant against Assange. This relationship would last for several months, during which he would simultaneously become a target of the Icelandic authorities. As they say, quote, charges were piling up against Thordarson for massive fraud, forgeries and theft on one hand, and for sexual violations against underage boys he had tricked or forced into sexual acts on the other. According to a psychiatric assessment presented to the court, Thordarson was diagnosed as a sociopath, incapable of remorse but still criminally culpable for his actions. He was assessed to be able to understand the basic difference between right and wrong. He just did not seem to care. He spent several years in prison, after which he continued his criminal career. He was contacted by the US Department of Justice, who offered him immunity from any prosecution in exchange for becoming a witness against Assange. The strategy taken by William Barr was to prove Assange was a criminal rather than a journalist, strengthen the case against him, in which Thordarson would play a major role. Quote, it was as if the immunity had encouraged Thordarson to take bolder steps in crime. He started to fleece individuals and companies on a grander scale than ever. He also forged the name of his own lawyer on notices to the company house registry. The lawyer who reported the forgery to the police where there were other similar cases, along with multiple other reports of theft and trickery. Incredibly, during the Stundin interview, Thordarson did not seem to be interested in denying any of these allegations against him. When asked about them, he instead simply admitted to everything and explained it away as normal business practice. This is wild, isn't it? This criminal pedo is partially responsible for Assange being locked up at the moment. He's walking around free. Assange is in jail.
The FBI love to talk to him.
Sure.
I love to use him.
Yep. His testimony became core part of the US prosecutor's updated case in the indictment against Assange last year. His testimony, now shown to be fraudulent, contributed to the London judge's decision to agree with the prosecution on the veracity of Assange's allegedly criminal past. Now, I just want to be clear, I don't think that there's anything substantive against Assange at all. The allegation of rape was dropped. So that's gone.
That was from Sweden, right?
That was from Sweden. And that was from a woman who made the allegation years afterwards because they seem to have had a consensual relationship in the time period where it was going on. And then this seems to have been political, frankly. And so, I don't see that he's actually committed any crimes so far. But yeah, the extradition, obviously the US was like, can we have Assange, please? And this was rejected on humanitarian grounds rather than substantive ones, which means he remains in Belmarsh and isn't free for some reason. But
What's he being held in Belmarsh for?
Well, that's a great question. Thordarson claims, which he admits were now false, having supposedly been instructed to commit computer instructions or hacking in Iceland on targets including Icelandic members of parliament. He also misrepresented facts about an incident involving Icelandic banks' leaked files in order to portray Assange as having been involved in data theft. According to Stundin, all these claims were reflected in the London court's judgment.
I love the idea that anyone gives a toss about Icelandic parliament.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not trying to be rude, but who cares?
Well, no, I completely agree. Oh, the Icelandic government. I mean, we probably employ more people than the Icelandic government.
Not the number one target for a big story about corruption.
Why would you? I mean, I don't think that Iceland's going to be a particularly corrupt country anyway, let alone, needing to crack open their governments.
During the 2008 financial crisis, people went down to the Prime Minister's building and knocked on the windows with him in.
Well, doubtless.
To protest. It was like, he's just there.
Yeah. Well, where else is he going to be? It's a tiny country. It's got 300,000 people. He's probably related to half the people in the country. I mean, they actually do have dating apps that say, right, you are or aren't related to this person in Iceland. Well, no.
Well, it's necessary, yeah.
Yeah, it's necessary. The entire country is only 300,000 people. I mean, Christ, you don't know. So anyway, though these revelations have far-reaching implications for Assange and the case against him, they have not been reported on by corporate media outlets. Free speech advocacy website Reclaim the Net, who do great work, go give them some support, called the situation a media blackout, whereas UK media watchdog Media Lens described the lack of, quote, mainstream media coverage as a tumbleweed. In their report, they quote Caitlin Johnston. Not one major Western media outlet outside of Iceland has reported on this massive and entirely legitimate news story. A search brings up coverage by Icelandic media, Russian media, and smaller Western outlets like Democracy Now!, World Socialist website Consortium News, Zero Hedge, and others, but as of writing this story, it has been completely ignored by all major outlets who ostensibly are responsible for informing the public in the Western world. So the corporate media, the people who are part of the cathedral, the people who are the sort of people who really didn't like Donald Trump, are not supporting Julian Assange either, because he's outside of the consensus.
This is weird, because I have seen at least even a handful of Labour MPs saying that this is ridiculous, he should be freed. Good. The Guardian used to be very much on his side as well.
They used to be, until they sold out. On Twitter, Edward Snowden declared that these revelations, this is the end of the case against Julian Assange, as did Glenn Greenwald reply by saying, well, it should be. Because both Greenwald is pretty much the last good left-wing journalist. He's the last honest one. And I really do respect him for the amount of stick he's had to take for sticking his neck out for Assange, right? I mean, he's been cast out of the holy land of leftism for being a far right winger, for telling the truth. It's like, okay, well, if that's all it takes.
They loved him exposing corruption under Republicans. When he exposes it on Democrats, then you're far right. That's
absolutely. And the thing is, this is what when I used to consider myself left wing, this is what I was concerned about. It really was the power dynamics. It was about regular people and the state and corporations and those people who are controlling all the instruments of our lives. They need to be critiqued. Any amount of power needs to be critiqued. It's not ideological conformity that allows corporations and governments to get away with things. That's not how it works. And Greenwald, Jimmy Dore is actually still good on this as well. Glenn Greenwald, Jimmy Dore, those sorts of leftists I can still respect, but the rest of them under the bus. Not one of you.
It's exactly how Greenwald talk about power dynamics.
Yeah.
So it's like when the FBI decide that they're going to engage in woke nonsense, Greenwald's not like, oh yay, she, her.
I'm a left winger,
But all the leftists are like, oh, the FBI put their pronouns in the bio. And it's like, what the fuck?
Look at
it's the FBI. You.
they're wearing pride badges as they hack my phone. Well, that makes it okay. And they will do another thing about shortly or soon about how we now have proof that they hacked Tucker Carlson. They've been spying on Tucker Carlson because they just came out and admitted it. Little verified
Well,
check marks.
they
on Twitter.
leaked the information that he was requesting an interview with Putin
Yeah.
to the media.
And then they were like, oh, well, it's justified then.
But it's not even a story. That's the weird thing. It's
Yeah.
like, imagine trying to smear Tucker Carlson. The best you can get is he wants an interview with Putin.
Journalist wants to speak to world leader. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
like,
of course they
if
do.
that's the standard, like everyone at CNN's fired.
Oh, God, I hope so. But yeah, so Julian Assange did nothing wrong. The case against him is full of lies, and it seems to have been a Fed setup.